We started here, worked our way back, went into the mythos, talked about some subterranean business, mix it in with a little Tecumseh. All right, that's perfect. So, all right, again. Matter of fact, let's go into the story right quick, and then we'll dismount with the shooting star Tecumseh flow. All right, A hop to the cons. Let me know if I'm overdropping. It's all happening. I'm gonna belly flop into this article and listen to one of the most thought-provoking and intriguing exploratory stories, subterranean exploratory stories. Man, it's very interesting. Love to analog, man. You popping off, man. I appreciate you for allowing us to have this thought-provoking conversation. Drag and drop 101. Let's go.
Found anything like it. When laid on the deck, it was seen to be about 20 feet long and 2 feet in diameter. It was of some very hard, dark-colored wood, like palm.
Go back.
Last summer, the schooner William Haley of Galveston, trading among the West Indies, was becalmed near the Gulf Stream. The second day, the captain's curiosity was aroused by a strange floating mass, and he ordered the mate to take a boat and examine it. The mate returned towing a log from which the men had cut away the marine growth, which had made it seem at a distance like a sea monster. The captain ordered it to be hoisted to the deck, declaring that in 40 years spent at sea he had never found anything like it. When laid on the deck, it was seen to be about 20 feet long and 2 feet in diameter. It was of some very hard, dark-colored wood, like palm, charred in places and worn and broken, cut and torn as if it had been whirled through torrents and maelstroms for hundreds of years. The ends were pointed, and 5 bands of dark metal, like bronze, were sunk in the wood, and the whole bore evidence of having passed through intense heat. On closer examination, the log was seen to consist of 2 parts, and these bands were to bind it together. The captain had the bands cut off, and in the exact center, fitted into a cavity, was a round stone, 18 inches in diameter. The rest of the wood was solid. The captain, more disappointed at this result than he cared to confess, picked up the stone and was greatly astonished at its lightness. Examining it more closely, he remembered that when a boy on the old New Hampshire farm, he used to find hollow stones with crystals in them, geodes, as he afterward heard them called. This was probably a geode, placed in this strange receptacle for some unknown purpose. He carried it to his cabin and put it into his chest. 2 months later, the old captain returned to his cottage on Galveston Bay and placed among his curiosities the geode he had so strangely found in the Gulf Stream. One day he studied it again, and the sunlight chanced to fall upon a narrow, irregular line. "I declare," said the old man, "it looks like as if this stone had been patched together." He struck it with a hammer, and it fell apart and proved to be filled with small pieces of yellowish-brown wood. The shell of the stone was about an inch thick, studded over inside with thousands of garnet crystals. It had been broken into 3 parts and fastened together again with some sort of cement, which showed plainly on the inside. The old captain poured the pieces of wood on the table. They were perfectly dry and hard. They seemed almost like strips of bamboo, and were numbered and covered with writing made by pricking marks with some sharp instrument like an awl. He found the first piece of wood and began to read, for it was in English. The work of deciphering the tiny dents on the bits of wood soon became the captain's chief occupation. He copied each sentence off in his logbooks as fast as it was made out. 5 or 6 sentences were about all his eyes could stand with a rest, so that it was a long time before the narrative was at all complete. The narrative runs as follows. The story begins. About September 17th, 1886. I am an American, Thomas Parsons, of Natchez, Maine. I have no living relatives. I write this in a vast, vaulted chamber hewn from the solid granite by some prehistoric race. I have been for months a wanderer in these subterranean spaces, and now I have contrived a way to send my message out to the world that I shall probably never see again. If some miner, tunneling in the Rockies, comes upon a vaulted chamber with heaps of ancient weapons of bronze, bars of gold, and precious stones that no man may number, let him give Christian burial to the poor human bones that lie in this horrible treasure house. He will find all that is left of my mortal name near the great ever-burning lamp under the dome of the central hall. That lamp is fed from some reservoir of natural gas. It was lighted when I came, months ago. For all I know, otherwise it has burned there for thousands of years. The entrance to this sub-mountain river is in the Azenbone Mountains, north of the United States line. I was a prospector there for several years, and I heard stories among the older Indians that a river greater than the Columbia had once flowed where the Rocky Mountains now are, that the Great Spirit had piled the mountains over it and buried it deep underground. At last, a medicine man, whose life I had once saved, told me that he knew how to get to the river and took me into a cavern in a deep gorge. Here we lived for a week, exploring by means of pine torches, and at last I found a passage which ran steeply downward. This, the Indian told me, was the path by which his ancestors, who once lived in the middle of the earth, had found their way to the light of day. I think we are about 3,000 feet below the entrance of the cave when we began to hear the sound of roaring waters. The sound increased until we stood by an underground river of whose width and depth we could form no idea. The light of our torches did not even reveal the height of the roof overhead. My guide told me that this was the mother of all rivers of the world. No other person except himself knew of its existence. It flowed from the end of the north to the extreme south. It grew ever warmer and warmer. There was a time when the people lived along its channel, and there were houses and cities of the dead there and many strange things. It was full of fish without eyes, and they were good to eat. If I could help him build a raft, he would float with me down this river. The old story said that one could go upon it for many miles. It ran down a hollow under the mountains. We built and equipped our raft and launched it on the most foolhardy adventure, I do believe, that ever occupied the attention of men. We lit torches and set them in sockets on the raft, and we were well armed. For 2 weeks, we moved down the high archway at a steady rate of only about 3 miles an hour. The average width of the stream was about 500 feet, but at times it widened out to almost twice that. It swarmed with many kinds.
Hey there, I'm Ryan, and today I'm here to talk to you about the...
Tree. You just here to hijack us, Ryan. Tell the truth, man. Are you Best Buy? Are you buying the best, man? Let's go.
With many kinds of fish, and they were very easy to secure.
Hmm.
The rock walls of the roof seemed to be of solid granite. We were below the latter formation. As nearly as I can calculate, we were 1,000 miles from where our voyage began, and nothing had yet happened to disturb its monotony when we began to find traces of ancient work and workers. An angle in the wall was hewn into a titanic figure. Another point there seemed to be regular windows, and a dwelling was perched far up in the gigantic dome. The Indian told me more of the traditions of his race as we drifted past these things. Quote, they were very great men who lived here. They had many things. They knew more than the white men. They are all dead now. And I had gathered from his chance remarks that they had left their secrets in their cave dwellings, which would make him the biggest Indian on the continent if he could discover them. Suddenly, we found that the river was flowing much faster, and we failed to check our raft. We went over a waterfall, perhaps 70 feet high, and were thrown on a shelf of rock at the side of the...
They already 3,000 feet subterranean. Can you imagine? Hearing the roaring water, so deep underground, pure water flowing. And then you hit a waterfall, boss. A waterfall underground? You're like, hell no. I did not expect to see a waterfall, boss. I'm already underground, 1,000 feet. And then he gets flung 70 feet over this waterfall. Thousands of feet below the ground. This is one of the greatest exploratory. I told y'all. Let's go. Let's see what he finds, boss. And then he's going to bring in